I never knew a 3-year-old could be so strong. But Addie, she sure is. She's a warrior, that's for sure.
Coming up today, a surprise infection sent Stacey Lubrecht's daughter into kidney failure.
So all in a matter of 5 days, my world was turned upside down.
See the sacrifice that brought joy and life back to her 3-year-old. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. A weekend of fun turns into months on dialysis. A mother determined to save her daughter, Stacey Lubrecht, was ready to do whatever it took to save her daughter's life.
You want to count with Jasmine? 1, 2.
They say a mother's love knows no bounds.
Oh, gotta cover her eyes. 3.
And there's a reason for that.
I am her mother, I am her protector, I am her birth mother, giver, everything. And she means so much to me. 10, ready or not, here we come.
Little Addie Lubrecht was a typical, healthy, active 3-year-old.
You got me!
Until one day she wasn't.
HUS, which essentially shuts the kidneys down. So all in a matter of 5 days, my world was turned upside down.
Go find Mommy again.
You gonna go find Mommy again?
Yeah.
Her parents, Alex and Stacey, thought Addie had a typical case of upset stomach and diarrhea.
Mommy.
Yeah.
Turns out Addie had sugar toxin producing E. coli. It led to kidney failure and immediate dialysis.
I didn't even know children could be on dialysis. I was very ignorant to this world. My world had never been opened up to pediatric, medical, anything, nothing. So it was, I can't tell you a worse day of my life than that day.
And it wasn't long before the Lubrechts were told, your daughter needs a kidney transplant. But along with a mother's love comes a mother's intuition.
I knew for a fact that I was going to be a match for my daughter. I spoke it into existence before I'd even gotten the results back and was willfully telling people, it's gonna be me, I'm gonna be her donor.
And she was. While Addie waited for her new kidney at Children's Mercy,
Right over here.
her mom was here across town at the University of Kansas Health System. In surgery, donating, giving life to Addie once again.
We're making a laugh.
Still not out of the woods completely, Stacey's mind would wander.
Being in the military, you always have to be ready for any side, and I would constantly think, this could be it for her. I don't see him.
It for Addie?
You walked right by me.
She's home now with Mom and Dad, picking up where they left off that day back in July of 2023. Not much to show for it, except this.
They had an incision here.
A now visual reminder of unwavering maternal love.
I am very blessed, and I will take my scar and love it for the rest of my life.
And we are so happy to be talking more with Stacey alongside her husband, Alex, and of course, little Addie right there with you. You told us Addie might be a little camera shy this morning. How's she doing?
She's okay for right now.
Yeah, she seems to be fitting right in. She has no problem with the camera. So we're so glad to have all three of you with us. Joining us here in studio is Dr. Sean Coomer. He's a transplant surgeon and Associate Chief Medical Officer at the University of Kansas Health System. And we also want to welcome in Dr. Richard Hendrickson from Children's Mercy. Good morning to you. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Yeah, Dr. Hendrickson is a pediatric surgeon, and he handled Addie's transplant. And I know you said, I know you're very busy, Doc, but you said for anything for this family, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
Stacey,
met them back in August of 2023 and did a couple of procedures to help them through this.
Well, we are excited to have you here to share part of the story and where you fit into all this. Stacey, we're going to start with you because you're just about a month out into your recovery. How are you doing?
You know, the first week was probably the hardest week. I've been very blessed with a really great recovery. It's been really easy. The gas pains inside were probably the worst, but I can't honestly recall any pain from the incision site, thankfully. I still have my lifting restriction of 10 pounds, but that lifts next week. So I'll be back at it, hopefully like a normal life altogether.
Back to momming it. So how's your girl doing?
She's doing great. I mean, you couldn't even tell she had an actual kidney transplant. I feel like she was jumping, running, like in the video. I mean, it was insane, the difference that the kidney made. She's eating what she wants, drinking as much as she wants, and that's more than we could have ever asked for.
Yeah, you had mentioned when I stopped by, you said just having her back to doing something as toddlerish as just eating and having an appetite was such a big surprise to you.
Yeah, we had to limit a lot of her diet with potassium and phosphorus. Calcium was an issue. She was only allowed 500 milliliters of water a day. So that was really hard to not allow your child to have water, and they don't understand why, because she loves her water. So now we have an unlimited amount, and that's honestly probably the best thing about this is our toddler can eat and drink as she wants.
Well, so it was no question, Stacey, that you were going to donate your kidney to your daughter. How long was she on dialysis, though, before she got the transplant and before that date you became aware of that date?
Addie was on dialysis for the peritoneal dialysis in her stomach, which Dr. Hendrickson put in for her for 14 days, I believe. And then they were able to take it out, and she maintained from the end of August until the second week of December. And then her kidneys took the final blow, we believe, from like RSV and strep and the medication that she had to have for that. That weekend we were inpatient, and she never really recovered. Her creatinine and her BUN never recovered. So they had to go back in and they put the hemodialysis in for her. And she was on 3 days a week, December, January, February. February, we were inpatient again. We moved up to 4 days a week. March, we had to go inpatient again for high potassium. And we moved up to 5 days a week. And then April, we had the transplant. So it was definitely a whirlwind.
Alex, this has been quite a time for you, too. I know you're home now taking care of your girls, but what was the day-to-day like for you and your family?
Well, it was getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and getting her ready, getting them in the car to go down to Kansas City because we're about an hour away, and Dallas would start at 7 o'clock. So I'd help get Addie ready and everything for that, and then would send them off to the city, and then would come home, and Stacey would be exhausted from getting up early and driving an hour, and having to be in the hospital for about 4 hours each morning, and then would come home and pretty much cook dinner and take care of Addie and play with her while Stacey would get some rest and get ready to do it all over again. So
yeah, a day in the life. So compare life before the transplant to now with Addie home after her transplant.
So before, when she was on dialysis, like we were pretty much having to go to the hospital, come back home. We really couldn't go anywhere, eat anything because she, was on such a restricted diet. So we kind of had to avoid going to places that had French fries and things like that because she couldn't eat fries because of the potassium level. Really couldn't, drink a whole lot of water. So that kind of restricted us on where we could go and do things. So it was pretty much the hospital and back home most weeks. We really just had to limit ourselves on what we could do because my parents lived down in Branson. It's about 3 hours away, and we'd go down there at least once a month prior to all this happening. And once this took effect, we kind of had to pretty much stay here because we never knew what the weekend was going to hold and whether or not she was going to have high blood pressure that would send her back to the hospital or get sick or whatever. So we pretty much were homebodies for the last 9 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Well, let's bring in our medical experts. I want to talk with Dr. Coomer. Explain the benefit of living donor compared to a deceased donor, basically waiting on a list.
Yeah, the deceased donor, obviously there are a couple things, right? So a deceased donor is not an elective operation. Mm-hmm. You can wait up to 5 years, even longer, for a match. You can get called at any time, and you have to arrive in the hospital, and it's a little bit more emergent or urgent anyway. A living donor, you can get a match a little bit quicker. The average living donor lasts about 3 to 5 years longer than the average deceased donor kidney. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and we can do it in an elective manner. We don't have to do it at 3 in the morning. We can do it first thing in the morning, and we know this day Addie's going to be off dialysis.
So Are there any restrictions, though, when an adult is matching a child?
Well, beyond the matching is the same. No matter deceased donor, living donor, no matter what, that's all the same. Sometimes there's a size issue with the recipient, right? An adult kidney is a little bit bigger than a child's kidney. So there's got to be an area where you can sew this in, and Dr. Hendrickson probably can add a little bit more about that.
Well, and we're going to talk with him because I want to, a lot of times when we go into your OR, it's literally one room between you. You go from adult to adult. In this case, you're going from adult, and then you're taking that kidney across town to Children's Mercy. Are you guys working on the same timeline, and how are you two communicating with each other throughout this?
We are. So what happens usually in the morning, I usually give Dr. Hendrickson a call and say, how are things going? How are things proceeding over there? And he usually gives me the high sign and says, hey, we're moving to the OR. You're free to go. And we kind of proceed, and then before I take the kidney out, we make a couple calls. Usually the folks in the room will call into their OR and Children's Mercy and ensure they're doing well and we're doing well and the timing's right. So then I take the kidney out, we put it on ice, flush with preservative solution, and then it gets boxed up by procurement coordinators and delivered directly in the OR over at Children's Mercy.
So, Dr. Hendrickson, what does a day in the life of a transplant look like? What was this coordination like on your end?
So for the day, there's a lot of that goes in before the day that it happens in terms of timing, everyone meeting with the family, making sure there's a good match, checking out her imaging, make sure the kidney we think is going to fit into a 3-year-old from an adult. So when that all is orchestrated, then we figure out a time where we're both going to start our cases. So Sean does his on his side and we do ours on our side. He calls me on my drive-in the morning. We talk, we catch up. He's a Steelers fan, so a bit of.
But we love him anyway.
We do.
Kinda.
And then, so we get started and we make sure we're on the same page. Like he said, we are constant communication in the OR. Their staff will call our staff. And when he's proceeding for what we call cross clamp, or when he's going to take the mom's kidney out, we already have everything done on our side at Children's. We have to get her back to the operating room, get her to sleep. We can use her hemodialysis line for central venous access, put a Foley catheter in, and then we can start our procedure, get exposure. Our goal is to have that ready so when that kidney is packaged and delivered to our facility, we can get that reperfused or take it out of the box, do some back table preparation, and then sew it in to the recipient, or Addie in this case. And we want to keep that time less than 2 hours. So we've gotten pretty good about that in terms of communication, courier time, and getting that reperfused within less than 2 hours. And that kidney will usually start making urine after we reestablish blood flow to the kidney.
And that's what you like to see. So it all sounds very, very technical, but I just love the idea, and I can actually picture it. You guys talking on the phone on your way into the office, like, okay, how are we gonna do this today? So that's very cool to hear. You have to run.
Yes.
You're going to ditch me, but I'm going to let you go, okay? And like I said, despite being the Steelers fan, we do love you.
Still love the Chiefs too. Absolutely.
I know you do. You got to get that in there.
Steelers,
Don't try to get in there on that now. All right, so we're going to let you go. I'm going to finish up though with Dr. Hendrickson and the Lubrechts today. But thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us, and Addie and Stacey and Alex. Great seeing you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
So, Dr. Hendrickson, just go back a little bit. So, do you? Are you waiting? Are you starting the surgery with Addie as the organ is making its way over? Or are you waiting till it's right there in your eyesight before you start?
We start about the same time, like when Stacey went back, we'll take Addie back. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes to get our patient ready before we make skin incision. So we have to take those circumstances into consideration in terms of the exposure we have to obtain before that kidney comes. So we want everything ready, all our vessels exposed when that kidney's coming into the room. So it's usually about same time. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Usually it's about, we go back to the OR about the same time. So the phone calls, we have multiple phone calls. Usually it calls me when we're both driving into work. We chit chat, catch up on our lives, our families. He's got 2 kids, I have 2 kids. And then we kind of like, okay, yeah, this is a start time. We get in there, make sure everything's working on their end. I saw Addie and Alex that morning. I've known this family since the beginning of August, so I kind of got a special bond. I saw them in think it was March, they were back in the ICU she alluded to, and I told her I'd stop back by. I got done operating. I went back there in the afternoon, and they were already gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where are they? So I went up to the floor, and Stacey's in the shower, and Alex goes, she'll be all right. I said, no, I promised I'd see her. So he pushed Daddy around in a little cart until she got out of the shower with her hair washed and stuff, and we caught back up. So we have a great program at Children's. My colleague, Dr. Malaputi, we do 2 surgeons for the operation. But everything's kind of synced out where we want to make sure the exposure is ready. So when that kidney comes over to us, we go to the back table, finish up the dissection, and then get it back in reperfused as quickly as possible.
Dr. Hendrickson, is there a chance that Addie will need another donor down the road? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so deceased donor average lifespans about 7 to 10 years, certainly can be longer. Sometimes it's shorter depending on, medications, rejections, and recurrence of the disease. Live donors, you can get 10 to 20 years. We hope for longer. So I'm hoping, I think the mom is pretty strong.
So
both
Alex, I know you were both a match for Addie. I take it if she were to ever need another donor down the road, you're ready to step up.
Yeah, totally. By that time I'll probably be about 60 years old, so hopefully it's still a good match and still a good kidney. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. Hopefully, we're hoping by that time technology and science is advanced to where something's changed to where maybe we don't have to worry about another kidney transplant. But if things are still the same, then yeah, I'm definitely going to step up to the plate and be the next one.
What's it been like to have this relationship with Dr. Hendrickson? I've heard him talk, we talk about all this technical stuff behind the scenes to make this all happen, but to hear just kind of like how he's bonded with you and your family, what's that been like for you?
I remember the day I met him when we went downstairs for Addie's dialysis port to be put in for her peritoneal dialysis. And as soon as he walked in, I felt this huge sense of relief because he's so down to earth and he talks to us like, we're friends and family there. We didn't feel like he was our doctor and we were the patients. He really bonded with us and we appreciated it. And he's always been really great on communication. And then every time I've seen him since to get cleared for transplant, he walked in with just this somber look on his face of like, wow, like I did not expect this, and I felt it in my heart and I felt that he connected with us through this journey, and to know that he had a part in every step of the transplant journey. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better surgeon, and I am so sure to tell everybody about him because he has just been such a highlight on this journey.
I love hearing that. Dr. Hendrickson, we touched on it with Dr. Coomer a bit, but talk about the size again. Compare with Stacey's adult kidney compared to a child size. I think a lot of people think, how does that work?
Yeah, so Dr. Kumar can't know our tricks over at Children's, but that is a thing we have to take into consideration. So once you get the match, then we get some imaging of the kidneys to check the artery and the veins, see what side you can take, the left or the right side, but also the size of the kidney. So even on the deceased donor, we have to evaluate the imaging of the donor to see if we can fit that kidney into a young child. We do them, age 2, Addie is 3. So we have to be careful about the size, not only top down, front, back, but the depth as well to make sure we can fit it inside there. So it's we don't do it through the abdomen. We make a right lower quadrant incision like a standard adult incision. I think the incision healed up pretty good on her. So we can gain access into the retroperitoneum, behind the peritoneum in these children, and get into their aorta and the vena cava.
Yeah, Stacey talked about her badge of honor, that scar on her stomach that she showed us, so that she'll wear with pride throughout her life. But let's just turn to our community, and if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat on YouTube or Facebook. We are on the X platform, or you can email the Medical News Network. Information is there on your screen. So we're curious how this all started, Stacey. Addie had an infection with something called Shiga toxin producing E. coli, which is STEC, caused by HUS. So explain what that is. What did doctors tell you about that and where it may have come from?
When she was diagnosed with STEC, it developed into HUS pretty rapidly. Dr. Srivastava at Children's Mercy got us taken care of, was great with the information. But they said HUS comes from two things. It can either come from lake water or like dirty water in that type of, environment, or a petting zoo. And Addie was at a petting zoo with her daycare 12 days prior, and he said it can set in 10 to 16 days after. So that's where we believe that it started. There's no true way to tell exactly where, but once he said petting zoo, I was locked and loaded in my head, like that's exactly what happened.
So with this somewhat behind you, tell us about a day in the life of Addie. Are there any restrictions, or is she back to, is she jumping on the bed, hanging out on the bed over there? Is she just kind of back to the same old girl,
She really is. She's on a few medications. We have 7 doses in the morning of medications to, protect her kidney, and then we're on 5 at night of different medications. One of them happens to be a steroid. Recommend to never put a toddler on steroids. It's pretty crazy. She's put on some weight. She's got an attitude problem, and she's sassy. But we would take this over any day in dialysis. Everyone would say, the worst day in or after transplant is still better than the best day at dialysis. And it wraps it all up. It's so true. Eating, drinking, laughing, having a great time. She's not sleeping the day away from being exhausted. She's really just living so nicely, and you couldn't tell anything's even wrong with her anymore. She's just so cute.
Well, she deserves to up the sass factor. I'm all about that. I like hearing that. Alex, I was going to ask you when you come back over just what you're most excited about for Addie's future. I'm sure when something like this happens for a parent, every single scenario goes through your head. But what are you most excited about?
Mostly that she's getting to live a normal life again without having poses and things coming out of her chest or out of her stomach, getting to eat whatever she wants, and can pretty much live a normal life again for the most part. I know like you said, we're, hopefully 20 years down the road, we're going to be, looking at having to do this all over again. But, for at least for the next 20 years, she can live a happy, normal life and not have to be restricted on anything and have to go to the hospital all the time. Just back to being a normal kid, normal 3-year-old again, and playing and being happy and full of energy. It's nice.
Dr. Hendrickson, did this transplant cure Addie's HUS?
HUS is, there's regular HUS and then the atypical HUS, and it's some kind of once you get the infection, there's probably a gene mutation that causes a complement regulatory, like protein factor H issue. I mean, can it come back? Yes. Is it very low chance? Kind of more in the atypical HUS, but this kidney should work pretty well for her, hopefully for 15 to 20 years.
Let's get to some questions from our viewers. And Jeremy wants to know, is there anything, Dr. Hendrickson, that they'll need to keep in mind or do differently with doctors as Addie starts to grow up and make that transition from pediatric into an adult, her adult health care?
So one thing we do at Children's is that we make sure we have a transition program both for our kidney transplant recipients and our liver, that they go to an adult hospital. That's either KU, St. Luke's, depending on insurance where they live. So we believe, and we've been doing this for over a decade, to make sure that there's a good transition to an adult transplant program to make sure they continue with that surveillance of the transplant.
Stuart has a question, and I'm glad he asked it because Stacey, you had mentioned this when I saw you about the gas pain. You said that there was like this really immense gas pain that you were feeling. Where did that come from?
As soon as I mentioned it to the resident doctors at KU, they were like, oh, it's because of the way we have you laid. It always comes up on your left side. So I'm not sure how they had me positioned, but it would shoot up right here every time I would sit up. So it's a laparoscopic surgery. And I'm sure Dr. Hendrickson can speak a lot on this. And they kind of have to blow you up with the gas, and it has to come out. And until it comes out, it's trapped. And every time I would sit up, it would travel up. And I would not be seen without a heating pad for the first week of recovery, because that was the only thing that brought relief for me.
Dr. Hendrickson, that sounds miserable.
So we insufflate the abdominal wall, CO2 insufflation, and what that does is elevate the abdominal wall so we could do our procedures, MIS or minimal invasive surgery. I'll bet the incision around her belly button is where the kidney comes out, so it's kind of like a hand assist removal. What happens is when you blow that abdominal wall up or out, it also stretches your diaphragm, so then you get some referred pain from that diaphragm being stretched out, and it goes usually to the shoulders or to the neck. When you have an injury or irritation of the diaphragm, it'll refer up to your shoulder. So usually after laparoscopic surgery or surgery blowing up the belly with CO2, you can get some shoulder pain or back of the neck pain, and that usually gets better over time.
I want to end on a couple of comments. Ruth Ellen says some of that sass is just normal, that she has a 3-year-old grandchild and she has her own mind, but we love her and just wants to give her best wishes to your family, Stacey. And then Georgie Ann says, what an adorable child. I'm so glad she's healthy now, thanks to her parents and all of the medical staff. So Stacey, I want to just ask you, what is the big takeaway from your story? What do you want parents to really know?
It can happen to anyone. I mean, we were living a normal life, from what we know, and all of a sudden it was turned upside down. I was put into a role of, fight or flight. I seemed like I was on that, and I'm still learning to come down from that. I've gained a lot of trust in people to take care of my daughter that I never thought I'd have to. Very protective over Addie. So it's hard to allow other people into your daughter's life to make sure that she's well and living. Advocating for her has become second nature. I ask all the questions. I want to know all the information. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I never want to feel in disagreement or uncertainty. So advocating is definitely one of the biggest takeaways. It's okay to ask the questions. It's okay to, ask why and understand what's going on. You want to be in the know in something, especially of this nature. Also, wash your hands. I feel like some of these things can be prevented if children, adults wash their hands and be mindful of putting hands in their mouth, washing their hands, things of that nature. So.
Great advice, Stacey, and you're a great mama bear. Thank you for sharing your story. Tell Alex goodbye and tell Addie goodbye, and thanks for being with us. Dr. Hendrickson, what's the big takeaway today?
If we have to meet families under these circumstances, or organ donation is wonderful. You can be a live donor like we have here, or you can be a deceased donor. Sometimes tragedy can lead to some happiness and the gift of life. And so that's what we're kind of talking about, is organ donation and the gift of life, a new lease on life. I'm glad everything turned out great. I really, like she said, I try to be more of just a normal person. Usually I don't wear a tie. I didn't know what the attire was for today. I like to be down to earth. I'm very transparent. And I like to have a good rapport with all the families I take care of. Usually it's complicated situations, but, in this instance, I always say putting a new transplant into a child is like putting a V8 in a Volkswagen. I'm talking like the 1960 Volkswagens. You put a new big engine in there and they're going to rev up and they're going to go 100 miles an hour. And that's the beauty about this, is they get back to being a normal child.
Dr. Hendrickson, thank you so much. Just thanks for being a great partner with our physicians to help bring patients back to life. And next time you're on, just lose the tie. We'll be good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate all of our guests today. Thanks to our viewers for your questions and comments. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
People always say, well, when's the best time to exercise after a diagnosis of cancer? Now. Today.
Fighting cancer with fitness. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Exercise and its specific benefits for things like sleep, stress, and chemo brain. Meet one trainer dedicating her entire career to helping cancer survivors become cancer thrivers. Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.